political decisions on military policy. And so you pay attention to those things. You know, I got my MBA in 1985 when I was about 29 years old. And so throughout the course of my MBA, I was studying the effects of government actions, policy on private enterprise. And of course, a lot of what happens in the private enterprise as far as defense contractors affects the military. So yes, I stayed very much interested in line. I'm pretty interested in following. Let's unpack this a little bit. I kind of led us down the path to talk about politics on a national or a general level. What about local politics? Locally. Because you can make a difference locally, very much, and you can see the direct effect of your interest, on politics. You can make a difference on who gets elected to a local office. If you feel strongly about who your next sheriff is going to be, or who your next presiding or associate commissioners are going to be, who your next county treasurer or county clerk or county auditor or county treasurer is going to be, or county recorder, you personally can make a big difference in that. Why do I say that?
It's your vote.
Like I said with the school board thing last week, every vote doesn't, did I talk about the school board?
Mm-hmm.
Every vote counts. But just think about it even one step further than that. If you're really passionate about who's going to be elected, and you went out and organized a group of citizens, and they all know 200 people because you know 200 people if you think about it closely enough, if you get a group of a dozen people together to go out and work for a candidate, either to get a candidate defeated or a candidate elected, you can make a big difference at the local level because we don't have high voter turnout for a lot of these local elections. You understand how significant you could be if you made your mind up to be at the local level.
Yeah, there was an election not too long ago in Carthage that it was basically a write-in and the guy won with just 2 votes.
Right.
And I remember because the media kind of made a big joke about it around here, but that's how the guy ended up winning.
Right.
Because everybody just wrote down the name and he was the only one who got 2.
It helps to have name recognition even at the local level, but yeah,
it was mostly just friends writing their friends' names down.
Exactly.
But yeah, the guy, I don't think he was really too much interested in even winning, and he ended up getting it. So.
But I just want you to think for a second. You can't make a difference even at your age and at the local level, because if you make a difference at the local level over time, you'll make a difference at the regional level. Then you'll make a difference at the state level, and I don't want to go too much further than that. But the changing face of American democracy, a population that is growing and on the move. We're an aging population, like I mentioned before. I may have already showed this. Changing households, American families today. What is a family unit? How would you define a family? You define a family today the same way you would in 1950?
Mm-hmm.
No. Families are different. They behave differently, perhaps. I like sitting around a dining room table having dinner at night. And we don't get a chance to do that very often with our schedule the way it is, but I noticed last week a couple of times we did that, and it really felt nice sitting there with my wife and my son and having dinner. And so it was kind of nice. And we talked about things. I asked my son, he's 20 years old, I asked him how his job was going in Springfield. We just had this good interchange. And that doesn't happen very often anymore. We kind of tuned everything else out. A lot of families don't like receiving phone calls between 6 and 7. Why?
They're eating and
You're watching their TV shows probably. Well, a lot of people consider that their family time. That's the quiet time where their families together having dinner or supper, and they're talking about things that have to do with their family, and they don't want to be bothered by the outside world. So there's a lot of families that are still like that. Families also have different views of politics. You know, I'm rather conservative in my views, as you'll find out probably over the semester, but that doesn't mean I don't respect and honor your views at all. That's not what that means. I'm not one of those type of people that says, well, it's either my way or the highway. My daughter, who's 34, I mean, she's very, very liberal. I don't stop loving my daughter just because I disagree with her political outlook viewpoints. So anyway, that's just the way things have changed. When I was 16 years old, I was interested in politics. My granddad, who took me out, started introducing me to all these political actors, and he just naturally assumed that I was going to be a Democrat like him. And back then, I said, well, I guess I'm a Democrat, because I'm told I'm a Democrat. Then when I got in the Army and started doing some other things, I became a little bit more conservative in a lot of my viewpoints. And by the time I retired, I was pretty solid the other way. My granddad passed away in '95, and he probably wouldn't have been very happy with me, knowing I would have changed. But the thing about being in the Army for 23 years, you can have plausible deniability. You can say that I'm not either and get by with it, even though you are, because you're not really supposed to talk about politics. The growth of the U.S. population has made a big difference in our attitudes. We were a very small country, relatively speaking, as far as millions of people back in 1800. Like I mentioned, we were probably a country around 8 million, maybe 10 million when we reached the year 1800. Now we're about 16 million or so. As far as male, female, born 1986 to 1990, as far as the population, that's pretty standard. As far as projected, as far as born between 1986, 35 years old to 35 to 39, and then born 60 to 64. So you can see that we're getting older as a population. This is getting more rectangular as opposed to pyramid, so the population is getting older. Percentage of counties with residents that are 65 years and older. You can see, here's Missouri right here, 21 to 35%. Up here you get around Henry County, St. Clair County, not Cass County, but some other counties up there by Clinton and Butler, Missouri. We got a very much of an aging population. Down here in the Joplin area, 13 to 16% of the population is going to be 65 and over. But if you get out to Colorado and Florida, people where they go out and retire down in Florida and Texas and Arizona and New Mexico. I don't know why Kansas is so doggone old, but up in the northern plains, I mean, they're pretty much of an aging population. What do you think about the distribution of the older population in this map?
Very centralized new.
Yeah, it looks like it's just a highway right here, doesn't it? I wonder why that is. Yeah.
I have an opinion. The older you get, when you have to pay property taxes, etc., you take a lot of things into consideration. And I know that Missouri and Kansas is a heck of a lot more cheaper to live in than Wisconsin, where I'm originally from,
Yeah.
and California. And like you said, the coastal, a lot of people live on the, but I think that's
80% of our population does.
you can see it in Florida, but it seems like a lot of them move away because they want to get away from the rat race.
Yeah, my theory is that when you get retirement age and you live on one of the two coasts, that you're going to retire and you come in where it's less expensive to live.
Right.
Yeah. I think that has anything to do with the religious points of views in this part of the country.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure the Bible Belt phenomenon is taken into consideration, and possibly, but when you retired after years of sinning, you're trying to get into heaven now, so you start going to church. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious here. I take that very seriously, by the way. But I do know some people that, a lot of you don't remember 2000, the big bug that was going to hit the people. People were being scared to death about their computer being no good at midnight on 1999, December. The millennium bug, or whatever the case may be. A lot of people said also that they thought the world was going to end at midnight December 31st, 1999. And so they started going to church in 1995 so they could make it look like they've been doing it for a while. And then after the world didn't end, a lot of people quit going to church, so.
2012.
Now it's 2012. Now, yeah, it's just next year.
And there was this one thing called, someone said the world was going to come to an end, and on May 21st of this year, then okay.
Yeah, that preacher was out there advocating that, right?
Yeah.
And then he's
changed his,
It's October.
We forgot to allow for Armageddon.
you know, we still have a test that week, so don't forget. Okay. We do have makeup sessions. You gotta laugh at this, right? You know, otherwise,
Yeah.
we see how delicate life is. And I'm not making fun of it, because Katrina changed people's lives forever.
The tornado this year.
The tornado here in Joplin changed people's lives forever. And so I take all that very, very seriously. But you can't go around crying all the time. You have to kind of have a little bit of levity in some of this stuff.
And I like the political cartoon they showed shortly after. It had a page for job listings with all these predictions. The future job possibilities for the guy who predicted all these predictions only have to be like 10.
Well, it's just like being a successful baseball player. If you have a batting average of .250,
You're average.
I mean, that's decent in the major leagues, but that means you're failing 75% of the time. So. This is as far as Hispanic, white, black, American Indian, Asian population as a percentage of population. You can see back in 1980, about 80% of the population was white. Today it's about 65%. Hispanic population as a percentage has tripled almost as far as the percentage of population. American Indian has also increased. Asians has also increased. The black population has also increased from 11 to, pardon me?
Does that just mean they're having more children?
No,
Or is
it's a relative size of population. I mean, so it's not like a real increase in numbers. It's relative to the whole population as a percentage.
Okay.
So they could be having more children, but there also could be more people moving in.
Well, I'm thinking American Indians. You know,
They could be having more kids.
did they leave for a while and come back?
I misspoke on American Indians. This pretty much stayed the same. I mean,
No,
it's
it increased, but
It's
yeah.
been anywhere from 0.6 up to 1%, so it's marginally increased.
Okay.
And that could have to do with the way they're taking better care of themselves, health care, education, all those types of things can account for that small percentage of increase. But I misspoke. I meant to say African Americans have increased as a percentage of general population from 11.5% to 13%. And here's where percentage of non-Hispanic African Americans in the country live, as far as where they tend to concentrate as far as a group. 50 to 86% is kind of like the older age going up through the middle of the country a while ago. That's kind of the highway here.
They're in the southern, eastern areas.
Right. It doesn't even register in Southwest Missouri, but you go to California, Texas, Oklahoma, the eastern seaboard. And then percentage of Hispanic residents in a county. I kind of wonder about Mack County. Yeah, Mack County. I kind of wonder about that, because I would think that Carthage, if you go in Jasper County, Newton County, Lawrence County, Berry County, you would think there'd be more of a representation there.
I'm kind of wondering when the poll was taken.
Well, this was this was just before the book was published, probably around 2009, 2010 data.
So it's changed since then.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is commonly referred to as the King's Highway.
Yeah.
That's really what this, you go back in Spanish history. This is referred to because the Hispanic people do believe that they have right to this. You can kind of see where the concentration is. This is referred to historically as the King's Highway. And so you can kind of see the area of emphasis for that population. As far as U.S. household trends, married couples, 1990 total households, were there 92 million of them. In 2008, there's 117 million married couple households. With children, without children, you can kind of read that for yourself. Female householder with no spouse, 12% then, 12% now. That stayed pretty flat. Male householder, 3% with no spouse. Why is it so much different between a female householder with no spouse as opposed to a male householder with no spouse? What's the difference in that gap? How do you explain that gap? Anybody have any idea?
More men are getting custody of their children.
Probably. Perhaps. Any other reason? Maybe people are cohabitating more? Or
Oh, yeah.
not getting
Shacking
married?
up.
Non-family households living alone, about 25%, 26%. Again, families are different now than they were. Maybe not so much 20 years ago, but certainly 50 years ago, the makeup of the family is much different. The traditional ideological spectrum. We talked about the different types of governments and political ideologies on Friday. The goal of government from a socialism standpoint is that everybody should be treated equal. Socialistic. If they're not, then we take away from this group of people and give it over to this group of people to make them equal. That's really what socialism is all about, right? Liberalism, equality of opportunity, protection and fundamental liberties. Conservatism, traditional values, order, stability, economic freedom. Do you think, based on these two definitions between liberalism and conservatism, that they're necessarily at odds with one another? I don't see it. Can you explain it to me? They define liberalism as equality of opportunity, protection of fundamental liberties. Think about how that's worded, and then go over here and say traditional values, order, stability, economic freedom. These two terms are supposed to be diametrically opposed to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Mm-mm.
Is it then what is protection of fundamental liberties? What fundamental liberties are we talking about protecting? Do anything goes? Anything goes? Is that what the fundamental liberties are that liberals are talking about? Could be. That's what it should. That's what John Locke would say it would be. But what about economic freedom over here on the other side? Ability to go out and maximize your wealth. Maybe that's where it's opposed. We really need to finish up chapter 1. Please start reading chapter 2. We will get into chapter 2.